Hi, I got the new Om Magazine, which is December 2011, and I made a hip opening practice, which is on page 28. And I'd like to just go through that with you. So all the information is in the magazine, but here it is where we will do it together. So it might be a nice idea for you to maybe do a few sun salutations before we practice, maybe with some warrior 2 poses in as well, because it is a hip opening practice. So depending on what's going on in your hips and in your pelvis, it might be nice just to warm up a little bit. But you can use this as a very nice seated sequence, very nice for grounding yourself, staying stable and letting go. So we'll start on the floor, and we're going to start lying on our backs on the floor, and then we will go through the sequence. I'd like for you just to roll very gently down onto the mat. You can use your hands as brakes, you can just roll down using your abdomen. Let's keep your feet on the floor, your knees bent. So you just come into this neutral position for your hips. You can kind of feel you can press your lower back down as you engage your abdomen. And then maybe your ribs float up as you let go. So you find this neutral spine, sacrum on the floor, lower back probably a little bit away from the mat. Just finding whatever is going on in your hips. And just bend your right knee and cross your ankle over your left knee. So you're sitting as if you're sitting in a very open cross-legged position, and you're flexing your right foot. You're going to grab hold onto the back of your left leg, or maybe across your shins, or whatever feels good. Keep your right foot flexed so you see the ankle, not the sole of your foot. You're trying just to draw your left knee towards you. You're coming into a hip opener, so the left thigh, or sorry, right thigh goes slightly away from you. And keep your shoulder blades on the floor. Keep the back of your head relaxed on the mat. And the tailbone going towards the front of your mat, or in the direction of the tailbone. Just take a moment here just to allow your space in your right hip. And start to soften. You're not really pulling or pushing here. You're just guiding your body a little bit. And with your breath. And then slowly just let go, release the right leg. You're going to bend the other knee. You're going to bend the left knee and then cross over your right knee. Then you're flexing your foot. You grab hold onto the back of your right thigh. So the left hand comes in between your thighs. You just hold onto the back of your right thigh. The one hip will be more challenging than the other. And then really keep that tailbone going down. You know, this is a movement in the hip. The knee cannot move in many directions. So there's no pain in your knee, there's no pain in your ankle. This is a movement just opening an external rotation in the left hip. Very slowly uncross your legs, bringing your knees to your chest. And even make some circles with your knees. Again, this movement in your hips in both directions. Make your knees together, roll onto your side. You come all the way up to sitting. From here again, bring your knees together, sit up nice and tall, and then drop your knees away from each other. So the soles of your feet are pressing against each other. So this movement is the hip opener. Again, you're just moving from your hips, you're not pressing your knees down, just pressing the soles of your feet down, and then allowing your hips to open. And maybe just take your hands behind you, lift your chest up. Lots of space across your chest, lots of space. sit up tall again. We'll come into firelock pose of double pigeon. You're going to take your right shin, so it's parallel probably to the front of your mat. So if you were facing the front of your mat, the shin would be parallel to the front of the mat. Lots of space between yourself and that right calf muscle. You're going to place your left shin directly on top of your right. So you're not trying to sit in a comfortable sukhasana, cross-legged position. You're not trying to sit into padmasana or lotus position. You have a big triangle, free of space between your thighs and your shin on top of shin. Your feet are flexed, your heel is over your knee. So this is a really uncomfortable position. Sit in an open cross-legged position. So again, you can see how much space I have. Or maybe even straighten out your bottom leg. If you have lots of space, you can sit firmly onto both sitting bones evenly. And maybe this is where you want to sit, maybe this is where you want to stay. If this is where you have a good stretch, that's where you're going to stay. Maybe you walk your hands out in front of you. I quite like to keep my fingertips pressing into the floor, so I have that, almost that kind of pressure to keep the sitting bones pressing down. There's a bit of guidance to keep yourself grounded. Maybe, if it feels good, you can bring your forearms to the floor. But even here, think of extending your chest forward, almost like you want to pull your rib cage towards the front of your shins. You'll notice when you stay here for a while, it's easier to soften into the pose. Suddenly you start to shift a little bit. Or maybe you start to feel you need to ease off a little bit. You'll come all the way up again. I'm going to remain in this position, but I'm going to shift around a bit so you can see easily. So I'm going to shift towards the front of the mat. Keep the right shin pointing forward, so the shin is parallel to the front of the mat. And then from here we'll come into pigeon pose. So I'm going to shift to the right buttock. Take the left leg all the way behind me. I'm going to try to see if I can keep that right shin parallel to the front of the mat. But as we kind of shift into our pigeon pose, probably the right heel will move closer towards my groin. Keep your hips nicely drawn back. Right hip draws back. Left hip slightly forward. Maybe just take a few breaths, sitting up nice and tall, with that external opening in your right hip. Really a very nice stretch through the front of your left hip. And again, you can stay up here, you can walk forward, you can release onto your forearms. And there should once again be no pain in your knees. This is an opening in the hip. You might feel a good stretch in the outside of your right hip, maybe to the front of your left hip. Very, very deep. Inhale, you'll come all the way up again. Keep drawing that right hip back. And lifting your chest nice and tall. And once again, we're going to shift onto the right hip. As we do that, we're going to move the left leg all the way out in front of us. This way, our right foot will be to the inside of our left thigh. So coming into janusirsasana, it's our hip to knee pose. So just take a moment to ground your seat into the earth. Really find yourself nice and tall. Reach your arms up to space in your front body, and then reach forward rather than downwards. You grab hold of your foot, maybe grab hold of your shin to the floor. And your choice, you can bend your outstretched leg so you move this from your hip. This is all this space where we hold our torso, we hold our thighs. There's so much tension, so much holding on here. Allow the spine just to be nice and long. And even find space in your front body. And as the right knee is releasing downwards, the right leg is not doing anything at all, it's just releasing. You can put a couple of blocks or cushions underneath that right thigh, that feels better. And an inhale, reach your arms all the way up again, and exhale, hands by your side. Now bend your right knee to your chest, and move into a spinal twist, and also a bit of a stretch in the outside of your right hip. You can keep the right foot to the inside of your left leg, or you can choose to take it to the outside, but keep that right foot pressing down, both sitting bones pressing into the earth, and then reach your arms up all the way again, shoulders soften. Think of lifting your ribcage away from your hips, and then rotate to your right side, right arm behind you. And you can choose whatever arm variation that feels good for you. I quite like just hugging the knees, have that nice open space in front of the chest. Maybe you come into a different arm variation, or maybe you bind, so you choose what really works for you today and where you want to work. Keep both sitting bones grounded into the earth. Left leg really strong in the spine. Slowly just release your arms if you're binding, and then bend your left leg so that the left foot is to the outside of your right hip, both sitting bones pressing down. So if this is too much, then keep the leg straight. We'll just stay here for 3 breaths. Just take a really deep inhale as you lengthen the spine so the heart lifts. As you exhale, just lean back a little bit. So you're rotating on your spine. And slowly come back again. Now keep your left foot where it is. You're going to grab hold of your right ankle and take it to the outside of your left hip. So we come into Gurmukha legs. So we're trying to bring the knees on top of each other, the heels to the outside of the opposite hip, but both sitting bones grounding down, so you can adjust that. Maybe your bottom leg is straight if it's not good in your knees. Maybe you're sitting on a couple of blankets or a block or 2. And from here you want to ground evenly through both sitting bones. And then once again, just reach your arms up. Bend your left elbow so the hand is between your shoulder blades. You're just touching the back of your heart. Maybe you can even imagine lifting your heart a little bit. And then take your right arm all the way around and see if you can either hold on to your left fingertips, or maybe you just hold on to your t-shirt. You can hold on to a belt or a sock or whatever you have near you. Just take a few breaths here. Keep grounding through your seat, lengthen to the crown of your head. Let's just take one more very deep breath. And exhale. Slowly release your hands. Take your hands out in front of you. And then you're going to shift back into your downward facing dog. And just take a moment here just to feel one leg and then the other leg. Just bending one knee, stretch, and the other heel down. Maybe both knees are straight as you lift your sitting bones. Maybe you can work towards bringing the heels towards the earth. And either stay here and move through a vinyasa, or maybe take a couple of breaths in child's pose. You can move forward into a plank position, and then lower down chaturanga to the floor, and then inhale to a back bend. And we're going to meet in a downward facing dog. And from here you're going to bring your knees to the floor again, and then sit back onto your heels. take your legs out in front so you sit in a cross-legged position. So we're going to do this sequence on the other side. So this time your left shin is parallel to the front of your mat, foot is flexed, and then you take your right heel over your left knee, right knee over your left heel. So hips usually feel slightly different on one side to the other. Finding that you can ground through your seat, you can even manually rotate those thighs outwards or inwards. So you have your inner thigh rolling in, outer thigh rolling out, so you have space across your sacrum. So I think sometimes we have all this lower back ache, usually it's usually quite tight there. Maybe if we create a bit more space through the pelvis, then that might feel a little bit nicer. Again, you can start to walk your hands out in front of you. Keep yourself really grounded through your seat. And when we're grounded, when we're stable, then we can surrender, then we can release. Maybe this is a journey that takes a few minutes. Maybe this is a journey that takes a few weeks, months. Maybe it's just a journey that we are on continuously. But wherever it feels like you're creating space, wherever you're just in that edge, expanding your space, that's the perfect place for you right now. And then very slowly come all the way up again. And then slowly bring your right leg all the way behind you. And come into pigeon pose again. You're going to just tuck the toes under just to make sure you're in one line. That right leg probably wants to move a bit further to the right side of the mat. And maybe just tuck the toes under so you can draw the left hip back. So again, you're aiming to get your pelvis, your hips level. Maybe you can put a cushion or blanket underneath your left hip if that feels better. Keep lifting through the pubic bone. A nice space in front of your right hip here. And again, you can stay up tall and start to walk your hands forward, maybe coming onto your forearms. Maybe start to release it all the way down. And just find your space. So this is really a time where you can just explore. How do you breathe? When there's a bit of tension, how do you deal with that? Where do you find the edge that's where you need to ease off? Where can you just step a little bit further out of your comfort zone? Just shift onto your left hip. You're going to take your right leg all the way out in front. Bring your left heel towards your groin. And find that you're really grounded. Right thighs pressing down without locking the knee, but the right toes pointing up. And just inhale, reach your arms all the way up, and then reach forward, coming into your seated forward in janusirsasana. And again, this is just, we try to work from the hips, from the pelvis. So even if this is a pose called knee janusirsasana, knee hip pose, you want to kind of extend the chest forward rather than collapsing inwards. We still have this space, this openness as we fold into ourselves. And then as you're ready, just walk your hands towards you. Bend your left knee. Again, your choice, put in alignment with your left sitting bone to the inside of your right thigh, or maybe to the outside. But keep both sitting bones really grounded. Again, you can sit on a block or a blanket, locking the right leg. You're going to really ground with the right leg. And then inhale, reach your arms up, and you're rotating on your spine as you stretch your left arm behind you. You hop your right hip, left knee towards you with your right hand. You can gaze over your left shoulder. Even here, finger for what's going on in your hips and your pelvis. You're almost like you want to take your right hip slightly forward, left hip slightly forward, and right hip slightly back. So your sacrum again is level. You have that nice rotation in the top of your chest. And then your choice, you can stay here, or you can bend that right knee so the foot comes to the outside of your left hip, keeping your left foot pressing down into the floor. And once again, you come into your spinal twist. Again, whatever arm variation that feels really good for you, you can find if binding feels good. But whichever variation you're doing, think of space. So yes, you're compressing in your abdomen, but space in your chest, space in your lungs, space to breathe. Space to your heart to feel expansive, open. And then slowly come forward again. Grab hold of your left ankle, take it to the outside of your right hip. And then again in this position you can choose to sit something a little bit higher if that feels good. And then inhale, reach your arms all the way up. Bend your right arm behind you again. Just touch the back of your heart. I imagine you can. And then take your left arm behind you, thumb pointing down. Reach all the way behind you. And then bend your elbow. Grab hold of your fingertips or your wrist, wherever you reach. Maybe just hold on to your top. Extend your arms by using a belt or sock. Through this stability, whether your heels are next to your hips, maybe your bottom leg is pointing out straight if this feels a bit uncomfortable, but whichever variation you're doing, you feel grounded through your seat. So everything we're trying is this openness in the hips, space in your hips, and then your spine can extend. So just notice where your tendencies are. You're sticking your ribs out to grab hold of your hands. You have a tendency to round your back. Let's see if we can find balance or something in between. Let's take another in-breath and release your arms down. From here, once again, we'll come into a downward facing dog, just to stretch it out a bit. And maybe this is where you're going to stay. Maybe you just want to just flow a little bit. Maybe chaturanga, maybe to the floor. Maybe a cobra or an upward facing dog. And then from a downward facing dog, just feel space in the back of your legs, feel space in your ribs. And bring your knees to the floor. Sit back onto your heels. And then from here, just come into any seated position, a comfortable cross-legged position, maybe a lotus position, half lotus position. Just take a few moments releasing your hands to your thighs, your knees, your lap. And just notice the connection to the earth, this solidity, this balance. You're grounded, you're stable and steady. Create all this space to feel spacious. And when you have that earth element, that grounding, then you have fluidity, you have the water element, you have movement. This is kind of the pelvis, this water element, the Practise.m4v chakra. Just feeling that space and feeling emotions, the water and emotions. They're very common, feeling strong emotions, whether happiness, anger, sadness. It's release. This is kind of creating space for our emotions for expression. And then notice the strength, the fire of your core. It makes you sit up nice and tall. It warms you up. It's your expression as well. your truth, it's your power. Allow that fire just to reach towards your heart. A bit of passion in our heart. Also space, movement, air, breath, prana. Allow that to flow to your throat for free expression and free communication and truth. And bring your palms together. Again, allow this to be just as a way of connecting to your center, your midline, your truth. And take a very deep in-breath and let it out through your mouth. Namaste. Thank you very much.